My name is Sophie and I'm a screen printer from Leeds, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can screen print from home using an embroidery hoop and fabric to make prints such as this one on fabric and on pieces of paper too. We're going to kick off by looking at what equipment you'll need to get started screen printing at home. Everything you need is on the screen in front of you. We're going to start by looking at this organza fabric. You only need a small piece to get started, but you might want more as you go on if you want to create more patterns. Next up, we've got a hard piece of cardboard. And it's really important that this is thick enough to be able to spread the ink later on. We also next need a brush, a teaspoon, a pencil, some scissors, an embroidery hoop, paper, of which you'll need about 10 sheets to get started, but you might want more. And we've got some slightly more specialised equipment here with some Mod Podge, which you can use PVA instead, and some screen printing ink as well. This has got some special medium in it, so it's slightly different to normal acrylic paint. Next up is all about getting your screen ready. So to get started, you'll need your hoop and your organza fabric, cut to the right size, which is just a little bit bigger than your hoop, as you can see here. Trap your fabric inside and tighten the screw so it means the fabric gets tighter within the hoop. What you need to do is then go around the edge and pull lightly so that you're not ripping the fabric, so you can get that fabric as tight as possible so it's like a bit of a drum when you've finished. Stage 2 is all about designing your screen. So for this you'll need a piece of paper, your hoop and a pencil. The best way to make sure that your design is the right size is to tuck your fabric in and draw around your hoop with the pencil. And I recommend keeping your design in this middle bit as it will be easier to print with later on. Now is the time to draw out your design. I've gone for these basic shapes as I love shapes, but also because it's good to have a bold pattern that's not got too much detail at this stage, so when you're painting the glue round later on, it's a lot easier to manage. Once you've got your design ready, it's time to transfer it onto the screen. With that drum side of the fabric down, use your pencil to trace through onto the fabric. This can be a loose outline as long as you can see it when you're painting the glue on the next stage. Next stage we get to make the stencil out of glue. So you'll need your fabric hoop, the glue and a brush. It's best if the fabric can face you so that you're not getting glue on the surface you're working on. So pop it facing you with that drum side up and get your glue ready to start painting around your design. Start painting around your design and avoid the bits that you want in colour later on your print. So for me this is painting around the edges of my design and carrying on going until all of that area is completely covered in glue. Make sure you're popping on quite a bit of glue, but not too thick, because we'll want to come and revisit it later on to make sure that it's spread evenly. The purpose of this is to make sure that no ink gets through later on when we're screen printing. So make sure that you're going right up to the edges and try and not paint the wooden frame, because it'll be quite hard to get that fabric off later on if you get too much glue on the fabric hoop itself. Once you've gone right up to the edges, flip it over and have a look. There'll be some really lumpy bits here, this is totally normal, but just use your brush and work them out, just spread them out so that it's nice and smooth. Now you'll probably have to flip this quite a few times from one side to the other and back again to make sure it's as smooth as possible. And you might have to remove some just to make sure it's as smooth as can be. Stage 4 is leaving your glue to dry. So if you're impatient like me, you can put it on the radiator or in front of a hairdryer. And once it's done, stage 5 is going over it again to make sure that there's no holes that any ink can get through. And what we're looking for here is tiny pinprick holes that are in that body of the glue. The only bits that you want here with no glue on are, for me, shapes, or for you, your design. It might take a few going over, so you might need to go over a second or third or even fourth time just to make sure that it's absolutely covered so that no ink can get through. This next bit is the fun bit, so we get to do the printing and adding the colour so you'll see your design come to life. So for this bit we need the hoop, we need a teaspoon, the ink, and remember this isn't normal paint, this is screen printing ink so it doesn't get trapped in the screen. Next up, we need our cardboard, our thick cardboard for spreading the ink, ideally the size of the design as you can see here. You can do this with an old debit card, but I prefer the cardboard. You also need your spoon and your paper. Now, if you want to experiment here, some cotton fabric can be nice to print onto. Make sure it's ironed and cut to the right size before you get started. Now we're on to the exciting bit. So get your ink ready and your spoon, and spoon out the ink onto the part which has the largest amount of glue surface available. This is called a little well of ink that we're going to use to do our screen printing. Pop your first piece of paper underneath and grab your cardboard, which should be close to hand. Our aim here is to drag this ink at the top from the top to the bottom, making sure that our design is fully covered when we drag the ink down. Now what we need to do is hold this down really firmly with one hand, and then in one swift movement, pop your cardboard on about 45 degrees from your screen and drag that down quite firmly so that your design appears on your paper, as you can see here. Next up, grab your next piece of paper and flip your screen around so that well of ink that we talked about is at the top, so it's ready for you to pull down with your cardboard again. And just take another drag of the ink through. If you notice little marks outside your design, you can patch these up with masking or parcel tape. And once you've got the hang of this, you can do this as many times as you like. This next stage is completely optional, but if you do want to try and experiment, you can also print on fabric using the same technique as we've just gone through. The only difference is that you need to iron the fabric and tape the fabric down using some parcel tape first. If you have a big piece of cotton, it can be really good fun to print repeat patterns on fabric, like you can see here, but be careful to print alternates first and pop it under the hairdryer to make sure they dry before you do the ones in between. If you want to keep your pattern the same way up, just make sure you scoop the ink to the top so you can get the best effect when using the cardboard to pull it through the stencil. You can repeat this technique as many times as you like, and it can be really nice to make a piece of fabric for a cushion or a tote bag. When you print on fabric, it's really important to heat set it afterwards. This can be done by popping a tea towel over the print and using an iron to heat set it. For stage 8, we're cleaning up. So you can scrape as much paint as you can off your hoop and off the piece of cardboard you're using and pop it back into the pot. As you can see here, there can be quite a lot left for another project in the future, so it's best to save it. Now at this point you might be super happy with your design and ready to finish. You can keep your design how it is, or you can draw on it like I've done here. But if you do want to go one step further, you can look at stage 9, which is printing layer 2. Layer 2 is a rerun of the technique that you used for layer 1. The difference being that you can use your existing print as a guide for where you want to have colour on layer 2. Like you can see here, I've used the pencil again to draw a design over. Now you can overlap or you can draw in the spaces around it, depends what your preference is. It's quite interesting to do a combination of both to see the effect. Like in layer 1, it's time to put the glue on, so make sure that you fill this right up to the edges and flip either side so you can get rid of the lumps. Once you're happy that it's completely dried and you've gone over it 2 or 3 times with the glue, it's time to get printing. So pick a bold colour that will complement your first layer and get printing. To decide where it goes, you can see through the screen to layer 1 to make sure that it's in the right place. So get your ink ready, hold it down tightly and pull the ink through just like on layer 1. Now this is the fun bit, just carry on printing until you're finished. Now you're all finished, you should have a pile of paper and maybe even some fabric with your finished design on it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy your new print and learning to screen print with a hoop at home. For more information on screen printing, you can follow me on Instagram at inkandbear, and you can also find me at www.inkandbear.co.uk.